The captain threw his hat at the cadet. Her next words changed the academy. The air at the academy training grounds always carried a strange mix of sweat, leather, and polished brass. For months the cadets had risen before dawn, boots striking the pavement in unison, lungs filled with cold air, and hearts burning with the weight of expectation. Among them was Cadet Emily Carter, a young woman whose dream was bigger than most around her. Where others came because of family tradition or as a way out of their small towns, Emily came with the fire of conviction. She wanted to prove that discipline, courage, and honor weren't bound by gender, background, or privilege. She came from a modest home, raised by a single mother who taught her that resilience was not a gift, but a choice made every single day. The academy was a place of relentless trials, designed to strip cadets down to their core and rebuild them as leaders. It was not just about running miles or memorizing codes. It was about breaking the barriers within themselves. And at the center of it all was Captain Jonathan Hayes, a stern figure known for his razor, sharp eyes, balked orders, and reputation for breaking cadets, until they either quit or emerged as steel-forged officers. Hayes believed in order, in testing limits, and in demanding respect. To him, leadership wasn't a soft skill, it was a battlefield where only the strong survived. On a blistering afternoon, the cadets had gathered in formation, sweat dripping under the harsh sun. Their drills had gone on for hours, marching, lifting, running. Mistakes were punished instantly, even hesitation earned scorn. Emily stood in the front line, posture straight despite her aching body. She had been singled out more than once during training, not because she was the weakest, far from it, but because she was one of the few women in her class, and many watched to see if she would falter. That day, during inspection, Captain Hayes walked the line with his usual sharp precision. His boots struck the ground with authority as his gaze scanned the faces before him. When he stopped in front of Emily, the silence grew heavier. He looked her over, eyes narrowing slightly, as if calculating something. Without warning, he yanked the cap from his head, and with a swift motion, hurled it directly at her chest. The hat hit hard, sliding down against her uniform, and fell at her feet. A gasp rippled through the line of cadets. No one moved, no one breathed. Hayes's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Pick it up, Carter." Emily bent slowly, retrieving the hat, her heart pounding. She held it in both hands, unsure of his intent. His eyes bore into hers, unflinching. "Now tell me," he demanded, his voice loud enough for the entire formation to hear. "What do you see? A captain's hat, a symbol of command, something you think you'll never wear." Every cadet stiffened. Hayes had a way of twisting moments into lessons, but this time felt different. This was sharper, heavier. He wasn't just testing her. He was daring her to fail. Emily's throat felt dry, but she tightened her grip on the hat. She could feel every gaze on her, waiting for her to crumble or stumble over her words. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just holding a piece of fabric and metal. She was holding the weight of every doubt, every whisper that said she wasn't enough, every unspoken rule that tried to keep her in her place. She inhaled slowly, lifted her chin, and spoke. "I don't just see a captain's hat, sir," she said, her voice steady, surprising even herself. "I see responsibility. I see sacrifice. I see the weight of leading others when it's easier to walk away, and I see something I will earn, not because you hand it to me, not because anyone believes I deserve it, but because I refuse to stop until I've proven that I can." The silence that followed was unlike any other. It wasn't the silence of fear or tension. It was the silence of impact, of words hitting deeper than expected. Even Hayes paused, his expression unreadable, though something flickered in his eyes. Around them the cadets exchanged quick glances, their rigid discipline faltering for just a moment as they absorbed her words. For the first time in weeks, Hayes didn't snap back immediately. He reached out, took the hat from her hands, and slowly placed it back on his head. Then he stepped closer, his voice lower but firm enough for everyone to hear. "Cadet Carter," he said, "those words may be the only honest thing I've heard in this academy in months. Let's see if your actions live up to them." He stepped back, barking, formation dismissed. The cadets broke rank, murmuring quietly, their eyes drifting toward Emily. Some looked at her with admiration, others with skepticism, but one thing was certain. Something had shifted in the atmosphere of the academy that day. From that moment forward, Emily was no longer just another cadet in training. She had drawn a line in the sand with her words, and now she had to live by them. Training intensified in the following weeks. Hayes seemed to watch Emily more closely than before, not to humiliate her, but to test the truth of her conviction. When others collapsed from exhaustion, Emily pushed forward. When recruits stumbled in drills, she offered her hand to pull them up, even when her own strength wavered. She wasn't the fastest, the strongest, or the loudest, but she became the one others leaned on when doubt crept in. One night, after a grueling obstacle course, Emily found herself sitting alone on the bleachers, nursing a bruised arm. She stared out at the field, wondering if her words that day had painted a target on her back. A shadow fell across her, and she looked up to see Hayes standing there, arms crossed. "You know what happens to cadets who talk big?" he asked. Emily swallowed, her voice quiet but steady. "They either back it up or they break." A faint smirk tugged at his lips, though it vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. "Then don't break, Carter. You started something bigger than you realize. They're watching you now, not just me. If you fall, they'll believe you proved me right about everyone who doesn't belong here. But if you stand—" He paused, his eyes sharp again. "If you stand, you'll change more than just yourself." Those words carved themselves into Emily's resolve. She trained harder, endured longer, and studied deeper. But more importantly, she began to lead, not with authority, but with empathy. When one cadet nearly quit, she sat with him through the night, reminding him why he came in the first place. When another failed a drill repeatedly, she practiced with her until sunrise. Slowly, the academy's culture began to shift. Where once there had been silent competition and isolation, there was now an undercurrent of unity, forged in the wake of Emily's example. The final test came months later, a grueling field exercise meant to simulate battlefield conditions. Cadets were divided into teams, tasked with navigating difficult terrain, carrying supplies, and completing missions while exhausted and under constant stress. Hayes observed from a distance, his eyes always scanning for weakness. Emily's team was pushed to the edge, their supplies dwindled, their energy drained. At one point, a cadet twisted his ankle, slowing them down. Some argued about leaving him behind to finish the mission, but Emily stood firm. "No one gets left behind," she said. "Not here, not now. We finish together, or we don't finish at all." Her determination spread, and the team rallied. They carried the injured cadet, shared their water, and pressed on. By the time they crossed the finish line, they were battered and weary, but they were together. When Hayes approached, his expression unreadable, Emily braced for criticism. Instead, he gave a slow nod. "You led," he said simply, "not with orders, not with fear, but with something this academy can't drill into you. That's the kind of leadership we need." For the first time, Emily saw respect in his eyes, not the kind handed out easily, but the kind earned through fire. News of her journey spread through the academy, and soon beyond its walls. Cadets spoke of her words that day when the captain threw his hat, and how they had changed not only their perspective, but the very spirit of their class. Where once the academy was a place of rigid survival, it was becoming a place where unity and resilience were valued as much as strength. Years later, when Emily stood in her own uniform of authority, she carried those words with her still. She never forgot the weight of that hat in her hands, nor the moment she chose to speak not just for herself, but for everyone who needed to know they belonged. And though Captain Hayes remained as stern as ever, even he admitted, quietly, that her next words had changed the academy forever. The moral of the story is that true leadership is not about power, position, or symbols of authority, but about responsibility, sacrifice, and the courage to stand firm when others doubt you. Emily's words and actions showed that strength is not measured by how much you can command, but by how much you can inspire, uplift, and carry others with you. One voice of conviction can change an entire culture, and real respect is earned not by demanding it, but by living it.